I remember when Valley Regional came to Moodus to play us that season, they had a halfback named Tommy Wind, and he was a very rugged player, but an excellent player, great center halfback. And I can remember one play where Willie was in the goal, and the ball had come in, and somehow it dribbled out about 20 feet or 25 feet away from the goal, and Tommy Wind came in straight on, and he kicked the ball as hard as I've ever seen a ball kicked a short distance, and it was unquestionably, it was going to be a goal. But Willie was right there in the right place. It hit him so hard, I could still remember going, oh, when that ball hit him, and back he went, and the ball must have gone out 50 feet. That was the closest to being scored on we had all season.
It was a close-knit community where people supported each other.
We were like a big family.
We stayed at each other's home, we ice skated, we did everything together.
First grade through 12th grade in the same building. Peter and I were in the same class. Our class was 32 people.
My recollection was that our graduating class was actually 34. There were 17 girls and 17 boys.
The school itself was so small they couldn't field any personnel for a football game, say, or a thing like that, but soccer was the biggest thing around in that area.
However, the culture of sports before Coach Nevers came was not a great winning tradition.
You did not even have an athletic director before 1955.
My dad, Tom Nevers, moved to East Haddam in the summer of 1951.
He was very photogenic and the press liked him.
He was an All-American at UConn.
My dad played soccer, baseball, basketball, and track and field. So he was a really fine athlete.
He was the whole package.
Quite frankly, I was looking for a job. I was all set to go up to Massachusetts at the Amherst, but the phone call was there telling me that Hale Ray was looking. Figured it was in the neighborhood. I went down and saw them that night. They signed me up that night, and that was it.
The opening included coaching at that time all three sports, and that's what he wanted to do.
There was an aura about Coach Nevers that was impressive.
Nevers came in and they won 3 state championships in a row, I think his second, third, and fourth years. And what we got to do was young kids would go over and run the line, so we sort of producing future ball players.
And I lived on Neptune Avenue, so it was an easy walk to watch the games and so forth. And that's what developed my interest in soccer.
He would pull me out of school for home games and get a special request to be released for the game, and I would go down there and I would run the sidelines. The ball would go over the embankment, and I would go fetch the ball and bring it back. It got me in tune for the up-and-coming 4 years.
Coach Nevers was a great role model for all the athletes.
I remember him being very strict about conditioning and not doing things that are supposed to disrupt your health. He was in unbelievable shape. I mean, holy cow.
And that was the biggest thing with Coach Nevers. We really were the best conditioned team.
We ran.
Tommy was very big on conditioning. He got his teams in shape.
One of the things that we dreaded was this mountain that we called Old Smoky.
Damn Old Smoky. He used to wear us out.
It's probably 300 yards to the top.
The last 10 yards or so, you're almost on your hands and knees because it was so steep. By the end of the season, there was actual ruts worn up in that hill.
The fact that we grew up in the country here, everybody was more active.
It was a farming area, and there was a lot of physical work that needed to be done. I worked at Sprecker's farm, baling hay and delivering milk.
We threw hay bales around all summer long.
And Sprecher had a lot of fields that needed to be done, and we got in pretty damn good shape. Absolutely, it helped our conditioning.
I don't ever remember getting tired on the soccer field. It seems like you could have played 2 games, and the games are easier than the practices.
Yeah, definitely. The games are like a day off almost.
That season
The fall season of 1958.
was more hope than expectation. Having lost, I think it was 7 or 8 starting players,
We had 4 returning starters, that's all.
we were concerned, but we were young and we had a large senior group of our own.
I was a senior on that year.
It was my senior year. I knew I had to give it 110% rather than 100%.
We thought we would do well, but no one on our team or anything anywhere else expected the outcome to be what it was.
My recollection of the first game was that we played at Bacon Academy, and we won something like 7 or 8 to nothing.
I remember parts of the first game. It was pretty exciting.
Everything just came together properly. We had Tommy Hurd and Rod Rollins, who were both soloists from the backfield, come back from private school. Jay Sprecher went to fullback. I had been in the goal, and Willie Braswell took my place in the goal, and it just worked out perfectly.
We scored 3 to 6 goals in almost all of our games. We played Valley Regional, we played Morgan of Clinton, and we played Old Saybrook. And I think those were the 3rd, 4th, and 5th games. And Old Saybrook was the most challenging. We were tied at 6 wins when we faced each other.
That was one of the better games. But we played our game and never kept us on track.
And we beat them badly.
We would get a shutout one game. Next game we would play, we got 2 shutouts, you know. And all of a sudden, the big thing was not to let anybody score against us. Everybody wanted to start scoring against us, and they couldn't.
My recollection is we didn't do all that many drills. A lot of it was half-field offense against the defense. When things were going well, we played volleyball with our heads over the goalpost.
Yeah, we had to play volleyball using your feet and your head.
And the loser had to run a lap or 2, whatever it was.
I never heard of anybody else doing that. But we knew how to head that ball and get it in the right direction, and we had a lot of fun doing that.
Backfield always won the volleyball.
The defense.
Yeah.
They won most of everything.
When we reached 7 games, that was Hale Ray's longest streak of shutting out the opponent in a season. And we started to realize that we had set a record for Hale Ray. At that point in time, Fred Post started to call us the Zero Kids.
Fred Post, oh my God, yes, I remember him. The name.
I do remember the name Fred Post.
Fred Post.
Fred Post.
Fred Post was a legendary sports writer for the Middletown Press. This guy would have a daily column keeping posted. He would just list everything that was going on in the shoreline and in Middlesex County.
There was one picture in the Middletown Press of the goalie during a game sitting with his back against the goalpost.
Willie, who was our goalie at the time, he sat down against the goal post because nothing was coming his way.
There's rumors that he was reading the comic books, but he would be sitting down sometimes.
And he wrote a little story about that, how the team was so good that the goalie could sit down during a game and watch it.
Oh, yes, Fred was a great guy, and for some reason he adopted us.
That instilled pride and motivated everyone to give a little more.
He was instrumental in building up the publicity.
I think the defense was quite pleased to hear the word zero a lot. He put that on us, and we couldn't get it off us. It was motivating.
It sparked everyone I knew in town's interest.
If we had an afternoon game, they'd let the kids out early, and they would march down the street here to come to the game.
As the Zero boys kept winning more and more and shutting out everybody, the attendance at games, it increased greatly.
On Neptune Avenue every day in the fall, I'm watching cars drive by, and they're all going down to the Legion Field. So I said to my mother one day, "Ma, I'm going down to the Legion Field." So I ended up at the field, and I'm going like, wow, look at all these guys. They're running around, and I see a free kick from midfield, 50, 60 yards into the goal mouth on a perfect instep kick that just floats in the air so people could run up and head the ball. I mean, this was cool.
They had a few fellows on their team that could kick a goal from the halfway mark.
Nobody else had the kickers that we had.
A lot of the other teams were really tough, but I don't think fundamentally they were as good as we were. They didn't have Tom Nevers.
Most teams were using their toes to kick the ball.
But he would teach the instep kick, which is the lace part of the shoe.
We used to have to play barefooted so you wouldn't kick with your toe.
It was a mortal sin, as a matter of fact.
I played for Durham High School, and we used to have shoes that had the protective metal plate in the front. Guys used that, including myself, to put power to the ball when you wanted to kick it far. But you go to Hale Ray, they didn't use that.
I think what we did more than anything was just demand adherence to fundamentals.
The surface area of your instep is about 4 times or 5 times bigger than the surface area of your toe. So obviously the ball's going to go harder and it's going to go a lot straighter and you're going to know where it's going to go.
We had small guys, but we were taught, and because of the accuracy, we could get short passes and faster passes off to our teammates and run with the ball.
As the season progressed, it actually became harder to shut out other teams because what they were doing was loading up the offensive half of the field. The other teams wanted to score on us so badly that some of them actually had their goalies down at half field. There was nobody in back of them, but they were so conscious of it, it made us ultra conscious of stopping it.
I think they felt that would be like breaking the ice.
We had a few close games. We had one where we won 1-0, 1-0 in Clinton at Morgan High School. And that was a very close call, to say the least.
Oh yeah, there were a few of them. When they played us, they called school off in the afternoon. And they had cheerleaders and everybody lined up out there. They were so wound up and so forth. They came out there. We took the opening kickoff, 2 passes, and we had scored. And the ball game was about over. It was a situation where once you stepped on the soccer field, you're all business.
And I think at the end of the season, I would say the last 3 or 4 games, it was on our minds all the time to finish the season with no one scoring on us.
They had a good bunch. Golub, Robita, Pete Sipples. Peter Sipples was an athlete and a half.
Peter Sipples, who scored so many goals, set fantastic records that season.
I remember that he played center position. He was very agile. He was the best player on our team because he was able to get a foot on that ball probably better than anybody else.
Peter had a lot of ability. He was a smart ball player. He just had a very, very strong mental grasp of the game itself.
Everybody admired his skill. He didn't puff himself up too much either. He was just somebody that had the opportunities and was very quiet about it.
Pete Sipples was a very heady person, very smart, intelligent guy, but he was also very competitive on the field.
What I used to do when the practice was over before a game is take a soccer ball and push it over the goal line and back again and over the goal line. If I wanted to get 3 goals, I do it 3 times. If I wanted to get 4, I do it 4 times. And in the 15 games, we got 56 goals and gave up 0.
It was something that grabbed attention of sports writers statewide when this little tiny school went through the season unbeaten, untied, and unscored on. We were really happy, but we really didn't celebrate because we still had the tournament. The first game of the state tournament wasn't like the season games.
I do remember that.
Can I preface this by saying that we were undefeated, unscored upon for 15 games. We played Valley Regional in the semifinals of the state tournament, and we had beaten them during the regular season.
In fact, my recollection is we beat Valley Regionals rather badly. One game for sure, maybe both.
So I think we didn't take them lightly, but we thought we could beat them.
They were really pumped, and we knew we were going to be in for a really tough game.
A lot of fans, a lot of excitement,
We knew they were just dying to score.
and I think they just played their heart out.
And Valley Regional, they exploded.
They scored first, and that was a shock.
Did that star explode out there? It was really bad. I mean, I could feel it right now. And the whole bit. But what are you gonna do?
It was a difficult catch for Willie. He had to go way up, and he grabbed it high, and his momentum carried him back.
Willie Braswell, the goalie, actually caught the ball, but then fell into the goal, so the ball never hit the back of the net.
It was terribly controversial, and it was the worst way to have a goal scored against you, your first goal. At least it could have been a great goal.
So that was the first time, obviously, we were ever behind, since we had never given up a goal before. So that wasn't too comforting.
I felt dejection, great dejection. It was frustrating because, when you go that far, you're hoping you're going to make it the rest of the season without being scored on. But they were so ecstatic. It may be the reason we won the game. They were so overwhelmed at having scored a goal on us that they let down completely.
The team pulled together, realizing that now they wanted the championship. They had to get through that game.
I was able to get 2 goals and then a penalty kick, so 3 goals.
I think it was like 3-1. It kind of won our hearts out, so to speak, but it put us in a position so that we could go for the state title. So it was a happy and a sad game at the same time because they scored against us.
And then in the finals, we played Suffield.
We played them in Manchester, Connecticut. They were an exceptionally good soccer team, an exceptionally tough soccer team.
And it was raining, and it was wet.
That was the toughest game of all.
It was nothing but mud and gore.
That was quite a competition.
Was fairly even, as far as I recall, and they scored first again.
And the ball got heavier and heavier as we went, but we slogged it through. And the rain in November is pretty cold.
Leon Golub scored for us second to tie it at 1-1.
We hammered away for the entire game. The score was 1-1. Then we went into the overtimes, and it started getting dark, and we got into the last overtime, and we just played our guts out.
And I remember one of the newspaper articles after the game saying it was one of the most thrilling schoolboy soccer games ever seen in the state. And it was. We played a double overtime game.
You got to remember, too, fields in that time and the facilities that schools have weren't like they are now. There was no lights. They called the game because you couldn't see anymore. You couldn't see the opponents on the field.
So we wound up with the co-championship with Suffield.
And I believe that the coaches decided not to look at the corner kicks, because at that period of time, after you played a double overtime, if the score was still tied, the team that had the most corner kicks won. And I think the coaches just felt the game was such an extraordinary game, it would just not be really fair for one team to say, I'm a state champ after this game because of one corner kick or something like that.
My dad supporting that way to end the game of not going to corner kicks is very much in keeping with who he was. And so it's not surprising he would choose that. He was willing to pay a personal price to stand up for what he believed in.
And when that game was over, we said, can we play it again? Can we play it tomorrow? Can we do something? And Suffield was cheering like they had just won the Super Bowl, and we were despondent.
Yeah.
We just wasn't supposed to end that way.
Naturally, it was a little bit of a letdown, but because the team was so well matched and we just played so hard, I didn't really mind sharing that championship. They weren't our enemies. They were good playing opponents, although I would have rather got an extra goal and won it. But they deserved what they got, and so did we. So I thought that that was very fair, and I felt good about that.
It's amazing when a team, bonds together and for a common purpose. It may sound corny, but there's just so much enthusiasm and positive vibes, that come from something like that. And I'll never forget that.
It's something unique, and I think it was just, we had obviously a good coach, but we had the right people there at the right time, and not necessarily all the greatest athletes going, but were willing to pay the price in order to do it.
The 1957 season was the only season that any schoolboy, at least Class S, but I believe any schoolboy soccer team, went through the season unbeaten, untied, and unscored on. And so we didn't even have a 0-0 tie.
I think that because of the small school atmosphere, that what was accomplished, it was a season that people will remember for as long as they lived, whether they were participating as a team member or as a fan or as a cheerleader or as an administrator.
Oh, I wouldn't forget that. I don't think.
With some of those teams, the only time they got into our half of the field was after we scored the goal and they got the first kick, and usually the 2 passes, we had the ball. And we would give it back to Peter so he could get his name in the newspaper.
I was in favor of that.
They had small guys in a lot of areas, but they were just so heady, and they were taught to pass. They were taught to play as a team. And, like I said, they were just a good bunch of guys.
I think the thing that really stayed in my mind about the team and what the accomplishments were, the best people were the slower people, and we learned that if you take your time and think about things, it'll serve you well.
It's attributed to the players on the team and Coach Nevers for instilling that kind of memory that I will always have.
I'm proud to be a Zero boy because working under Coach Tom Nevers, working with such good teammates that had the same will and the same spirit.
I don't think Coach Nevers' philosophy ever left. You always refer back to the successful times, and when you look back at Nathan Hale Ray or Hale Ray, you always have to include Coach Nevers.
You can have skill very clearly, and all coaches know this, but you have to have a will and a desire to win, and there's no doubt that he instilled that in everybody.
He taught me to have a lot of integrity and to do good for the community.
Absolutely, what he taught us and the will to go out and be the best certainly carried on.
Coach Nevers was here 1950s and early 60s, and he still is influencing this town.
Most of us can only hope to have those words spoken about us a half a century later.
No, never gave it a thought. Never gave it a thought. Our whole approach was the ball game that was being played. We had to play that ball game, we had to win that ball game, and that's all we concentrated on. We weren't worried about any records or anything of that nature.
I am proud to be part of the Zero Boys. You bet your bippy I am. I knew how to take an order and do the right thing. I also knew how to run and put my mind at zero and keep running and running and running and running. And he got that going.
I had the opportunity to work with a coach who impacted my life to the extent that it led me down the career path of becoming a high school principal.
So that's what got me into coaching. There's no doubt about it. And as I look back now, there's no doubt. I mean, the legacy that he started, certainly has impacted my entire life.
I think the town was looking for something to get behind, and for about 10 years they had something really good to get behind. David slew Goliath 3 or 4 years in a row, and it can be done. It's not easy, but it can be done. And I still look in the papers to see how Hale Ray has done boys, girls basketball, or whatever the sport is. They could do it too.